welcome back, and thanks for checking in. My name is Dan, playing as Aries above, and of course, per usual, recovering from the holidays and recovering mindfully too. Um, Having a very, very, very strong topic today. We're going to be talking about and diving into play habits, try to answer the big questions around how does our play impact not only our win-loss data, but our psyches, long-term and short-term goals, and like overall community. I was super excited when you brought this topic up. So with that, I don't know if there's anything you want to provide any pretext around that topic before I provide the agenda for today, but what do you think?
Yeah,
What kind of made you think about that really quick?
sure. So, I mean, the topic that we're gonna dive into is habits, or like the things that we do naturally when we play Magic Arena, and it's something that I pitched to you because I mean, I've been thinking about it, to be honest. There's one thing in particular that I'll mention once we dive into it further that I notice myself doing more often, and I don't like it. So I think for the topic it'll be like habits, and not necessarily like there's no inherent like negative or positiveness to that. It's just like the things we do. But the main one that I'm going to talk about is one that I think is kind of a negative. It's something that I do. So I'll say more on it in a bit. But yeah.
Very excited to kind of like think about myself in a different way. Think about, okay, how do my play habits impact others? So thank you for that. That's gonna be right away. We're gonna talk about quick check-ins, provide some updates around some current events that's been happening with me, Danny. I want to check in with you too, see what's going on outside of Magic. We'll hit everyone up. Then we'll jump into our big play habits discussion, provide you guys our deck text, and give you guys the link to see the games in action. So first things first. This week was crazy. This past week with COVID and with the Omicron variant, it's been a decade in education now. And I got an email Thursday saying that we are going to cancel Friday school because we couldn't staff our school. We couldn't staff our school district because of absences and things like that. Anything like that happening around you?
That is very eerie, to use the word that you used earlier when we talked about this a little bit. But like that's not ever happened in my district before. Nor have I heard that happening at a school before. Like it's usually like a decision that's made like, hey, we're just gonna go virtual because things are spiking too much. But never have I heard of this happening, which is a little scary, I gotta say. It's not. That's not really the case over here in North Carolina where I'm at, but there are major spikes. I think I did get the first like email from my principal asking me about close contact with very specific students that I had in my classroom, and this whole time I've not had that incident occur. So like it seems like it's encroaching more because like now some of my direct students have been exposed. And it's been happening at our school, but not to the point in which like now it's in my classroom as well. So it's just Omicron is something else. It's not something to take lightheartedly. It's more contagious, and we're seeing the results of that for sure.
And the point of this podcast, is always to check in, see how we're doing, play Magic, have fun. But I think to pretend like it's not happening is just absolutely foolish.
Oh yeah.
Not real, not realistic. It's not okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
And for me to realize or to see on a big scale, to the fact that we have to close an institution like our schools, I'm just hoping everyone is safe.
I know.
I'm hoping everyone is doing okay. This is not an opportunity to rag on anyone's decision or judgment. This is, I think, just another thing, another kind of like, for me, it was like just an opportunity to reflect on like, this is still very real. This is still happening. I think that we're not talking so much about death with this stuff, but we're talking about, I think, just a lot of fear and unknown still about all sorts of stuff. And so I just wanted to take the opportunity just to talk about that before we started talking about our Magic stuff, because for me, the fact that our town is just kind of very scared right now and very uncertain right now, but also, dude, kind of excited that maybe this is the last wave. Maybe this is our last big push before we see some type of summer, or we see some type of like light at the end of this tunnel, or at least reach the top of a mountain
Yeah.
that we can start to come down from.
Yeah.
Right? I just still feel like walking uphill like we have been
It's
for
a
so
roller
long now.
coaster. It is
It's been a lot.
yeah, no, it's like a roller coaster for sure, and I'm not a fan of roller coasters. But we felt like we had reached that end of the tunnel when the vaccine was introduced, but now with the new variants that are spreading around, it is getting it's getting scary again. And I mean, I was sick earlier this week, and we had to take those precautions, so I had to go hunting around. We drove like an hour away from the city just so that I can find somewhere to get tested, because apparently that's more of a difficult thing to do now as well. Luckily, it wasn't COVID, but it's just like some of those. It's just like we can't even have like a normal cold anymore without it, like being afraid that it's something more intense or scary. Um, so it's very much still reality, not something to take advantage of or forget that's still happening. And we work and we live and we play Magic in the context of what's currently happening, right? And right now it's COVID. So there it is. Yeah.
Well said, brother. Well said. Coast to coast.
Yep.
My buddy Ron, out in Oakland, Bay Area, principal of school, COVID. That's stay home.
Yep. Yep.
Like coast to coast. So wishing everybody coast to coast around the world, man.
Stay safe.
Just kind of,
Yeah.
Ugh.
Stay safe.
It's the worst thing. But yeah, stay safe out there.
Stay indoors.
Good
Play
news.
Magic.
Any good? All right, so real quick, come on, let's go. Give me some good stuff happening in your life. Give me one more good thing. Not to be like, okay, it's the bad and the good. I think they coexist, right?
They do.
So what good things are you what good things are going on in your life right now? Give me one thing. I'll give one thing.
Sure.
And then we're gonna dive into our play habits.
Yeah, I mean, I have some major changes happening in my life. Pretty soon, I'm going to, put a pause on my teaching career. I have about a week and a half left, and then I've accepted a position elsewhere, which is still within art education, but it's not in a school. It's a nonprofit. So that's just a huge change of pace. I don't know what to expect, and that's exciting for me. So I'm looking forward to it. And maybe that'll mean a little extra time to play more Magic. I don't know, because it's hard when you're a teacher. There's just so much to do all the time. But who knows? I'll keep my fingers crossed. How about you?
Congratulations, Danny. That's awesome. I'm excited to hear about that journey as well. So I just finished. I've been starting to train for a marathon. I'm gonna do the half marathon in Chicago in April.
Mm-hmm.
And I ran my first double-digit run. I ran a 10-mile run yesterday on a treadmill, so that was pretty boring overall. But it was one of those things where like I was beaming.
Yeah.
Afterwards.
No, absolutely.
Because I hit a goal. Now in my real life I'm an instructional coach, and so what that is I just help people set goals, and then I like remind them I'm there.
Yeah.
I help them set mini goals to reach their bigger goals. It's it's a great job. And one of my biggest reflections I think was coming out of this podcast is, I gotta put my money where my mouth is. I can't be telling people that they need to be hitting these goals without setting goals and hitting goals myself, or I can't be giving advice around Brawl without diving in and playing the Brawl. And so
Yes.
similarly, that kind of thing where it was like I was actually just super proud of myself for hitting a goal. Now, one of the things we talk about in coaching a lot, Danny, is this tendency for humans. It's actually, I don't want to get into the science of it, but we have a tendency to forebode joy, which is the brain naturally kind of wants to suck onto negative thoughts.
Sure.
And emotions,
Yeah.
right? It takes 14 times longer for the brain to perform a positive image of something than negative, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so for me to actively like celebrate, dude, you did something. Congratulations, you hit a goal. I'm starting to break the habit of like, it's not about winning. I used to have this habit of like, it's not about winning, it's about not losing.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Because
it's about like,
Yeah.
it's this pride that it
Oh, yeah.
is. But instead, turning that entirely, getting rid of that mentality about like, I need to be, playing for some other reason than myself, to like be able to celebrate. Look at that, dude. Good job. I ran this thing. I did 10 miles. I could just see some personal growth there.
That's,
So
I mean, dude, that's
really, really
that's
pumped
so
about
relevant, especially for today, because we're going to be talking about habits, right? We're talking about habits, the things that we do consciously, unconsciously, automatically, autonomously, right? So like that absolutely fits into what we're going to be talking about, I think. Nice.
and I think that's the perfect transition
Yeah.
to the segue to like, okay, let's do it. Play
Let's keep
habits.
talking about habits. Yeah. So again, they're not habits aren't, I don't think, inherently like a negative or a positive thing, but it's a thing I think worth taking a moment to notice. So in Magic, in Arena specifically, like what are the habits that we tend to fall back on when we are engaging with our cards, our deck, the game, other people. Um, and the one thing that stood out to me that I really started thinking a lot about was this habit that I've gotten into with scooping early, as in calling it quits in arena when something just doesn't go as planned, pretty early in the game. So an example would be, keeping a two land hand in arena, knowing that like I'm probably not gonna draw that third land because that's kind of if we're talking habits, we can talk about arena habits. Like, what are the habits that the software itself has? You might have encountered this, but if you tend to keep a two lane hand, you're probably not gonna draw that third land for a while. But I make that habit sometimes of keeping that two lane hand anyways, and I think I can make it work, and it just doesn't work out. And I feel most often than not, if I just stuck it out a little bit longer, I probably could have made it work, but I don't. I concede and I scoop it up if I miss a turn or two even of lane drops, or if I make a play and it totally gets blown out, sometimes I'll just scoop it up if instead of just playing it out and seeing, well, maybe my next card draw will let me come back in or something along those lines. Maybe my opponent will make a mistake. I don't usually stick around for that, and I tend to scoop it up at that point. And for me, I think that's kind of a negative thing. Like, honestly, like I've been reflecting on it. I'm like, I need to start to be more conscious of when I'm getting the urge to do that, and maybe pause myself before I do that. But I don't know. What do you think? Am I being too hard on myself, or does that make sense? Have you done something like that before?
I think every Magic player that is a conscious human can empathize with the urge to flip the table when they've been two for one or made a silly mistake, or were outsmarted. Because I do think that this game actually is like a magnet for those types of people who want to be clever and who have like naturally I think high IQs. Because if you're going to be just like reading cards, reading things with rules on them all the time and make that like your enjoyment, you obviously have a different way of viewing, patterns, the world, and structures, and you're finding joy in that. And so I think being clever is a natural, corollary of like, here are all these things we can do. You can do the same things I can do. I'm gonna do them better. So I naturally, this like mental warfare that happens.
Yeah.
I think that like you said, this idea of like early scooping around two lands or less, I agree with you. I think that's interesting. And then your idea of shame scooping, not playing to all your outs, is almost like you're saying.
Yeah, that's a good way to phrase it. Yeah.
I'm not gonna look at even like I don't even care. I'm just gonna. But is it because you don't want to win that game, or is it because you just want to start a new one?
So it's because I want to start a new one. But that's the thing. Like, this is a behavior that I think is inherent for me, anyways, to arena. Because as I mentioned before, I still play paper Magic, and when that happens and I'm in the tightest spots, like I stick it out. And I think for me, that's the difference. Is I'm just like in front of people, I'm in person, and I have experience that I can fall back on of turning the game around or flipping it around, or someone else will do something that lets me come back on top. There's a lot more variables that come into play, but when it comes to arena, because I think it's just like a one-on-one thing, I don't see those incidences happening as much. Like, I can't recall like ever top decking something that absolutely won me the game. Like, there's one card in my deck, and if I draw it right now next turn, I'm gonna win it, and like I'll be good. That doesn't really tend to happen on arena for me for some reason. In real paper Magic, all the time. It's really weird, but on arena, not so much. So I feel like there's no point in like sticking around, I guess. not playing all my outs as you mentioned. Um, but again, something I became aware of, and I want to start to maybe not be so hasty in that decision moving forward. Yeah.
I do think that because we talked about in an episode, I think it was in Time and Money, about how in episode one about how the shell of Arena,
Hmm.
it's designed to make money, and so there obviously could be code or could be effort, intentional effort put into rewarding that type of play style where you do stick out and wait out your outs.
Right.
And I don't know, that could be things like achievements being come from behind, or when you mulligan or start with a game at 5. And there's these achievements around the things that in person, if you do around a tight knit community,
Yeah.
that'll be like laudable, right? So I'm thinking in Commander, you're never just gonna like scoop it up when you don't have you don't have like you're like at 2%,
Right.
because if you do top deck or you do figure it out, or maybe your opponents overlook you, that could be talked about forever, like within your play group, how you're able to wiggle your way out of it.
Yes.
But inside of it, right, and also too, one of the things that I do, just even following Arena, not excuse me, Arena, not Arena, following just Magic the Gathering, obviously they're tearing down the competitive play structure, but Reed Duke, are you familiar with Reed Duke?
I'm not. No.
So Reed Duke is a just an unbelievable Magic player. I'll pull up his, his. I'll look up his all-time stuff, accomplishments, but he's known in the community for never scooping. Is that not the coolest
Wow.
thing to be known for?
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm looking at his wiki page right now. Actually. Yeah.
I'm just reading this right now. 4 Pro Tour top 8s. I mean, that alone is just incredible. And he was, I think he's had a ton of runs in Modern.
Okay.
And so Modern playing Jund. And so, I mean, Modern's a game where he's top decking all the time in Jund.
Right.
But, that idea of like, no, I'm never going to scoop. And so I think that's like an awesome heuristic.
I think that's a great characteristic to be known for. Pretty cool, pretty noble, I would say actually. Making me feel a little bad actually. Jeez, I mean that's great though, cause like he knows. I imagine that like if that is because he knows, like he just knows of the possibilities, the things that could go right after things feel like they're going so wrong. And that is part of the game of Magic. That's why I do enjoy the game. Is just a huge aspect of it is just chance and luck. So those moments can definitely still come about, and you can draw the thing that you need to get you out of whatever situation. So I'm glad I brought this up because again, like I said, this is something that I've been thinking about. Like it's just something that I've noticed I do a lot. One of the main reasons I think it's really negative on my end is because I'm not really taking into consideration the person I'm playing against. Because I forget that sometimes I'm playing against another person. It's like an actual human being, right? On Arena. I don't necessarily get to see them or know who they are, but it's another person. So when I do an early scoop, I'm probably not taking them into consideration. Maybe they had like a really cool combo that they wanted to finally piece together, and here I come along, and I'm just like, well, I missed my third land drop, I'm out. Like that's it. So to me, like that's probably like the main reason I think it's kind of a negative thing. It's like not taking into consideration the other person, because I forget. Like there's other people. I'm playing with other people, even though it's Arena. It's hard to think of that sometimes. But yeah.
So hey, you play. I don't play as much in person, and actually, that's going to be one. That's actually one of my big goals for this year.
Yeah.
2 goals. One is to play more in person, and 2 is to play more control. I'm stealing Richard from MTG Goldfish, but it's just to try to play more controlling strategies.
Sure.
But also to play more in person. Could you say confidently, in your time playing in Magic circles, a great way to build trust with that group and a great way to get people to like playing with you is to never scoop?
Um, yes, absolutely. Like I think it's definitely like shunned within the Magic community. People who scoop at inappropriate times. So more often than not, like I think like the unspoken rule is like you can scoop at sorcery speed, which means usually it's your turn, right? Unless you have late line of anticipation, then you can flash out your scoop. Just kidding, but no,
It's a
like you,
very actually counter scoops.
right?
So brutal.
But no, like the unspoken rule is like you scoop during your turn, or sorcery speed. Because I've played against people who scoop once attacks have been declared, and it's just like, well, if you were gonna do that, then you should have done it before, because that wasted a whole turn, a whole combat step. Um, so I think it's not so much about not scooping; it's just like when it's appropriate to do so. Mass land destruction. If I don't see it now, at that point, I'm probably gonna scoop it up. And more often than not, like everyone else at the table also feels the same way. That's not to say I haven't played through those things before, and it definitely ended up being fun games. But it's more about timing. It's not so much about not doing it, but it's definitely more about timing. Yeah.
I was just thinking about but can we both agree that in person we're not scooping?
Yeah. Often it's usually a consensus. Like when I scoop, it's like other people are also scooping because the other player just has such a dominant board, and it's already like we've been at it for 2.5 hours. We're good. Let's start a new game. You know, or if I'm going to die, then I let that person kill me because that will save another person, give the another person an extra turn. It's just good courtesy, I think. I think it's just being more mindful that you are sitting with other people who are also trying to enjoy the game. So, like, if I'm dead on board, I'm going to wait on board until someone kills me. So, yeah, I think that's a major difference for in person. And that does help build trust a bit more because, you know, they'll at least know, like, hey, cool, I have at least one more rotation before I need to deal with something because Danny's about to die, so that's cool. So yeah.
And I think if you never, yeah, and I think if you play me in person, I've gotten a lot better at like I'm always gonna play like I'm gonna win.
Right.
Like, I'm always gonna play like the top card is gonna get me out, and I'm gonna have a big smile on my face because come get some.
Yes.
And we're here to have fun, and I think
yeah.
that's why.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, it's really important. Magic is hard though to do that, but it's one of those like life skills where you have to learn that skill to say, it didn't come together today.
Yeah.
I'm going to zoom out and let others have their day.
Right.
And, like, I'm not going to scoop and I'm going to be the easy target to, like, make sure their combo goes off or whatever that is.
Yeah.
And, like, being a good loser is a great way to build trust with people and to have fun in the Magic the Gathering, right?
Absolutely.
I think we're going to have to be very intentional about getting back in person again with everything that's going on.
Yes.
In general.
Yes. No, I agree. Yeah.
But you said, pretty straightforward. Number one is early scooping. Number two is shame scooping. And one of the things that we talk a lot about in my professional life as a coach is that going back to just the structures of the brain, it's really tough as human beings to look at stuff we do poorly and fix it. I know that sounds crazy, but it's very, very hard to us to just kind of identify this is what we're not good at, so we're going to be better at.
Yeah.
Instead, the hack that we've learned as coaches is to start with, okay, hey, what are you really, really good at? And let's start with that as our focus and see how that maybe can seep into these other strengths or weaknesses. So, not to take on the role of a coach, but to take on the role of a coach. Danny, talk to me about what play habits are you good at? What do you think you're good at in Magic?
Ooh. This might seem contrary to what I just said, but when I don't scoop early, it is, I would say, waiting the longest possible to then make my move, I guess. Because, as a control player, you have to be, for lack of a better word, strategic about when you're going to do certain things. And you don't want to do things too early, right? Because then that's one other trick out the window, and you can't rely on that anymore. So, for instance, River's Rebuke, which is a card that I play often in some control decks. It's a one-sided. It's kind of a rude card. It's a one-sided Cyclonic Rift. It just bounces on non-land permanents. And that's a card that I think needs to be played at a very specific point in the game where not only will it set the opponent back, but also give you the time that you need to get ahead. Because I have had games in which like I've played it too early and my opponent was just able to put everything back out like nothing ever happened, and then I'm still in the same position. I'm just like crap. Well, that was not good, right? So I think over time, like I've learned to identify like that moment, like that window of like this is when it needs to happen, so that I can just do this as a follow up. Um, with that said, there's definitely moments in which it was too late, and I'm like, I think I can wait one more turn, and then I died. So there you go. But overall, I think just like having that patience to just find that window to make your move. I would say, yeah.
I would say just playing with you, you're hella patient with new players.
Oh, you have to be.
Are a
Yeah.
joy to play with new players, right? Where you're almost like helping them win.
Oh yeah.
And I think that that's really important too.
I mean, you have.
It's like,
yeah.
like really doing quick rewinds. Like, no, that's not how that works. You should do it like this, and then
Yeah.
see how that works.
No, I think if we're talking new people, new players, people who are just coming onto the game, like you have to be, because that's not a moment for you to show off. That's not a moment for you to like, stomp some noobs and be like, yeah, I'm better than you. Like, that's a moment. That's a teaching moment, and that's probably, because we're teachers, so that's how we see it. But we're trying to get people to get into the game, to enjoy it, to eventually down the line be able to defeat them. But like you want them to be able to be strong enough to get to that point, or else you're just beating up a little kid. I feel, and like that's not cool, right? Like let them enjoy the game, let them understand how it works, let them win, so that they can fall in love with it. If you immediately just start bashing on someone who's getting into the game, they're not gonna have fun and they're not gonna want to keep playing. And then that's one less person in the world who you'll ever get to play a game with. So yeah, don't be. Yeah, you can't.
And
You
I
can't
think
be a
that
jerk.
Magic is a huge community, but for whatever reason, it's incredibly niche and almost like hidden, like in different communities. That's one of the positives I bring, is I know I'm incredibly fun to play with.
Yeah.
I
No,
know that.
absolutely.
Like I know I'm chill. I'm like a fun type of like intense.
Yeah.
Like I know, but I'm always gonna give props when I lose. I'm a good loser. I know that sounds silly, but it's true. I think I grew up playing baseball. And so, one thing you learn in baseball, my coach would always say, whoever fails less wins. And it was all about, like, baseball is all about just making the fewest amount of mistakes. It's so hard.
Yeah.
Whoever can just make the fewest amount of mistakes, because they're inevitable, is going to win. And I feel like that mentality I've been able to really apply to Magic and say, like, look, I drew, especially like in Commander, it's Singleton, for goodness sake. I drew my cards, I'm having fun, here's what I'm going to be playing, and really not even trying to, I don't know, I don't want to say try, it's like, it's not about not winning, but it's not being focused on like the optimization or the optimal line. It's really just playing your cards and like enjoying other people's company. And I feel like that's a skill that that I'm actually pretty good at, is like playing Magic to just enjoy other people's company instead of just playing Magic.
Yeah.
And I feel like you can, I don't know, I feel like that takes a lot of effort though to do. And I get why people wouldn't feel like that.
No, yeah. I mean,
because it is, like, you are pretty vulnerable and it is an incredible investment and you want to win. But I think that, especially with COVID and everything that's going on in our culture lately, it's going to be really important to just be kind and gentle as people start coming out of the woodworks and start interacting with each other again.
yeah. No, for sure. And I mean, I can attest to you being like a great loser.
You heard it here first.
Not in the sense that like you lose all the time, but like when you did lose, like I didn't feel guilty. Like I wasn't made to feel bad for winning. Which I've had games like that where like I've won in such a disgustingly deplorable way that I feel like I need to go take a shower when I go home, because that was just like brutal. Like that was just intense, and I feel terrible, and I can see it in the looks of like other people's faces, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, what have I done? But like whenever I played against you, like you're just like, cool, yeah, let's scoop it up, let's go again. And I'm like, okay, cool, great, and it's just
let's go again,
let's go again. And I think that's fantastic, because you don't sulk in it, like you don't like you're not sore about it. But you're a great winner as well. Like you don't rub it in. Like when you do win, and you win often, and like you're not just like gloating in the moment. You're just like aha kind of thing, and you just talk about it for the next 5 minutes, because I also know people like that. So you're also a great person to play against. So let's just we'll end it there.
So a couple takeaways, like one, never scoop. Two,
Never scoop.
nobody wants to hear about your stories about losing or winning.
Right.
No.
Oh yeah, that's true though. That's
Just play another game
yeah,
instead.
yeah.
If you were going to talk about what happened, just play another game.
Right. No, I
Like
think
two
yeah.
heuristics, culture heuristics. Never scoop. Don't talk about the games.
Hashtag
What do you
never
think?
scoop. I like it. I like it. That's gonna be something I'm gonna try from this moment onward. I'm gonna let my opponent kill me.
Yes, and it's okay.
And it's okay.
fine.
You're right, and it's okay, cause like they're probably having a good time, so that's what I gotta
And like
think
to
about.
see like negative 110 life, that's just funny too.
Mm,
Sometimes
mhm.
I think it's. Funny.
Oh, no.
I think it's like.
I've definitely
all right, you
yeah.
did it.
Yeah. No,
Good
I've
job,
been
you
I've
did
been
it,
there
you did it.
before, and that's always like a fun number to see. Or like if there's one moment where there's one game that comes to mind. It was someone who I played against on Arena, and they had Burgie. And those of us not familiar, she's the mono red god that got released in Kaldheim. Whenever you cast a spell, you make red mana, and then it just kind of storms off. And I knew it was GG's on my end, but it was such a cool and fun interaction. Like the other person was like emoting to me, and like that let me know that they were having a good time. Like they weren't saying GG's or good game, because like that's kind of rude. They were saying like I forgot what they said or something. They said hello or something else, and I'm just like nice, and they're like thanks, and we communicated just using basic emojis. But I can tell that they were having a good time because like their plan was working. Like that their whole deck was made to do that one thing, and it was doing it. So like it took 10 minutes, but like it was fun to see. Like and I stuck around for that one. But I think recognizing those kind of moments are important. Like just like noticing when other people are having fun. And if you leaving stops that fun, then maybe stick around a little bit, So hashtag don't scoop.
Hashtag don't scoop.
Yeah.
Hashtag don't scoop, dude. And like I always want to talk about this, and I always want to make this a point of our discussions and check-ins together. Is how is Arena coded to reflect the ethos? And anybody who thinks that the internal hardware of a game can't be rerouted or encouraged to go in certain ways. I mean, and maybe me being like a little too like idealistic, but if after 10 15 turns, or if there was an option to like emote like request friend, like
Oh yeah.
as a way to say like, yo dude, I'm here to watch you, I'm your friend, I want you to like go off, have fun, and
Yeah.
it's a way that in Brawl you could do that because you've been there for if it's like you have to wait 10 turns to request the friendship, the other person can see you're requesting it
Right.
through the emote. Those are ways that like you can get a badge for if you waited through a combo for so long. There's ways to measure
Oh,
that,
absolutely.
how long other people's turns are waiting, and if you're waiting, maybe that's your patient king, or I don't know, something along the lines of like you're
Yeah.
encouraging these types of behaviors. But once again, that's not the point of arena, and I think that's going to be tough when people come and play paper. They may think it's like let's go.
Yeah,
Playing paper, you
that's
got to
true.
slow down.
You do.
Like,
You do.
because it's just a lot more going on.
You-
Like, you just do. I mean, I know you know that.
Oh, yeah.
for sure.
No,
I'm
absolutely.
preaching to
I
the
mean,
choir.
You,
But like, I'm
yeah.
thinking as new players come out, there has never been any type of like encouragement of like that type of really good play style and playing habits that build trust inside of arena at all. Like at all.
No, not
And I
at
think-
all.
Or even the economy's not even responsible either. That's a whole different discussion of our podcast. But I think that'd be really exciting if that type of things were considered to encourage the play style that we want to see in real life.
I think man, that'd be fantastic, to be honest. But at the current state, that's just not how it's set up, right? It's set up to get you in the game, to get you playing as many games as possible. Make sure you hit all your quests, all your dailies, spend some gold, spend some money, and keep you going. So do they want people necessarily sticking around for half hour in a game when they could be playing 3 other games and making more gold or gems or whatever, spending more money? I don't know. But that's
I don't know.
then that starts to speak to the nature of, well, what is their
Yeah.
intention, right? And I mean, we know what their intention is. It's to make money.
Mhm.
But if there's ever a drive to make this more of a community game, I mean, that'd be a great direction to take it in for sure.
So I think that to top it off, like just to kind of bring our play habits
Hmm.
to one of the things that I guess to add to your list, this idea of early scooping and shame scooping or not playing to all your outs and just like, all right, screw this, I'm done.
Yeah.
I think those are two things moving forward that like if you're in an environment like Brawl where the goal was just to play and have fun, you really shouldn't scoop. Now, if you're in a tournament, like have you done any of the arena cubes or limited cubes, any of those?
I haven't. I was looking at it this morning, and I'm like, oof.
If you're in an environment where the you conceding it actually benefits your opponent, I think you should just do that. It really speeds everything up. um, I don't know though. I think though that people will be surprised if they play out more of their hands. I
Yeah.
think, and don't have such a nihilistic attitude of what's happening. I think starting to taking a picture of your deck list before going into games or being able to access them.
Hmm.
That's one thing that I do as like a limited player is I need to know my outs, and I don't play with any of the data software that's available.
Right.
That's really cool. It's out there. That's available. I think people should play to that, know their percentages,
Yeah.
stuff like that. Um, but I think that moving forward, that one heuristic of like, okay, I'm not going to scoop, just especially if it's to have fun.
Yeah.
And then number two is just like kind of win and lose gracefully.
Absolutely.
Don't talk about it.
Don't talk about it. No one wants to hear it.
Who wants to hear
No
it?
one wants to
Who
hear it.
wants to hear
Yeah.
it, Danny? Who?
I mean, I don't know. I don't want to hear it. Do you want to hear it?
Most people don't like. They don't even know the card names. Like I don't want to hear.
Yeah.
This happened. This happened. It's like if anything, propose a new game. So
There you
I guess
go.
to like tie this up, I want to ask you, what are your goals? Like give me one goal for based off of our discussion here.
I'm gonna play all my outs. I like that phrase. I've heard it before. I just forgot about it. So like now that you mentioned it, like that's just it's such a good mindset to have. It's not about being stubborn. It's about playing your outs. So piecing something together at the end, rotating it. Bringing the game around. I think it happens all the time. And I just saw a video last night. I watch I Hate Your Deck a lot, which is a great YouTube channel. But like the odds of something happening were slim to none in that episode, and it happened anyways, and it was such a fun moment. And I'm just like, man, like okay, so like there we go. Like it happens in the game all the time. So you gotta play your outs, because you don't know what's coming up next. You just don't. So that's my goal, playing all my outs.
I love that. And I think, after hearing you talk a lot about playing to your outs and really thinking about the long term arc of the game, it makes me think about, when I'm there or when I'm in a community, my goal is to build relationships with people.
Hmm.
And that has to be number one. People are going to be so much more forgiving and welcoming if I'm just curious and there to have fun and not there to necessarily win. Now, people who
Right.
are there to win,
Right.
that's awesome. And I think in the environments where that's encouraged, let's do it.
Yeah.
That's so fun, especially like in limited. I'm a big limited player as well. But I think too, I have a tendency as someone who plays aggro. One of my weakest play habits is I have a hard time staying focused like in the mid to late game. I kind of get overwhelmed at things that are happening, and I kind of want to just scoop, like you said,
Sure.
or just play really aggressive or fast,
Uh-huh.
instead of thinking about like what is that strategy and how could I actually, what is the way I win down the line instead of just giving up.
Yeah.
Is there that 5-10 percentage points that I need to like really explore how to win? Because I think that's when you look at the pro Magic players, it's the same 80 people over and over again. It's because they're doing something right.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
And it has to be, really understanding your deck and
Mhm.
playing to your outs and never giving up and playing holistically. That's one thing that, I actually think it's actually a play habit that happens before we start playing. is when I build decks, I don't necessarily take a long time to look at the cohesive sentence my deck is trying to make. And I feel like that's another strength you make, is like when you present your cards, like you're presenting an idea, not just micro synergies. And so when I think about, when I start building decks and then you start looking at my decks for Brawl as we do this for the next few months, I'm excited for you to give me some feedback on my deck building.
Sure.
That's actually, I think, one of my play habits. Is that okay? Can we constitute that as a play habit?
Yeah, no, I
deck
think
building?
we can. We absolutely can. And I think because of the way you play, that's what's inherently making those differences. Like an aggro deck is gonna play out differently, obviously, than a control deck would be. So the way they come about, the way they're displayed, the sentences that they're trying to say are drastically different. So I think if we can learn from each other, though, because I think a control player can learn a lot from an aggro player, and I think an aggro player can learn a lot from a control player. So like that's more or less what we're trying to open up here. Is just like, how do we get to know the other person? How do we get to know, our arch enemy? Because my arch enemy as a control player is the aggro player, and vice versa, right? So how do we dissect that further and understand it better? Is there such a thing as being too aggressive as an aggro player? Because I have a story in mind that's happened, so I'm curious though of like, what do you think? Can you go too hard, too fast as an aggro player?
So you're asking 110% the wrong person and the biased person. But let me give you an honest answer.
Sure.
Can you go too hard? And once again, this all depends on the context. If we are in a limited, like if you are in a game, a Friday Night Magic place where the goal is to like you winning packs or prizes, no.
Okay.
I think you should be as best as you can, as intense as you can, and try to be a pro.
Sure.
Fine.
Sure.
You're there to compete. People are putting money in, so I think they should expect that a high level of intensity. I don't do that. I let rewinds and stuff happen all the time. But I think that you can't blame anybody who does.
Sure.
Who comes there with their money and wants to be serious.
Absolutely.
No, you can't blame them at all. And you still should open up opportunities for goofy relationships with them when it's over. I think that could be a big level up for a lot of people too.
Yeah.
It's like drop the intensity once we're not being intense.
Right.
But in like commander games, I see what you're saying about like you could almost be like oppressive with your with your gaming, right? And you want to try to like, okay, so it's how much is too much is that, and I guess I don't want to. I want to give you a good answer and say like I think no.
Okay.
I don't think you can be too aggressive because it's a learning opportunity, and it's a way for that person, okay, they got bugged out by it, blow that person out next time. There's probably one or two cards that will wreck their life.
So,
figure out what those are.
Yeah.
And like build relationships with somebody else to do that.
So the reason
Great question.
you're good. The reason I asked this is because this has happened about 3 times so far this week. So this is why it's still fresh in my mind. Turn 1, turn 2, played out my mana dork, and it gets Swords to Plowshared immediately. Or it's a black player. They're playing the 1 CMC removal of a creature.
4-person commander.
No. This is an arena. So I'm just like, okay, and I understand like that's the phrase. Bolt the bird. Like you gotta get rid of the bird ahead of time. That phrase exists for a reason. But like, just the other day, someone Swords to Plowshared my mana dork, and I'm just like, that's a 1 mana exile a creature card, and
Historic Brawl.
Yeah, and I'm just like, hold up, okay, like that was super aggressive in my opinion, and they were coming. It was like a mono white deck, so they have to go hard fast, but I'm just like, that just caught me off guard. I did not expect the Swords to Plowshare out of mana dork, but there it was. And then turn 6. I was able to ramp up a little bit more. I casted a comma Urkoma Serpent, right? The indestructible, or not the indestructible, but the 6/6 that poops out a bunch of 3/3s. You know, the Simic Serpent dude, and I'm just like, and that won me the game. And I'm just like, had he held on to that Swords to Plowshare, he would have. That was the ideal removal for that creature, because he can give himself indestructible. So that's why I asked that question. Like, when are you going to bolt the bird? When should you when should you hold back, kind of thing? And
I'll tell you
yeah.
right now. I'll tell you right now, and I actually have a very so I used to play modern burn, and I played modern. I went 5-0 a couple of times with like some, like just some like prowess fast decks. And who was your commander when you entered the game?
Oh, it was Jadzi. So what was it?
Jadzi?
Yeah, episode 2. That's Summit Commander that I played.
So
Yeah.
okay, so if you played, so you went what, land bird?
Yeah, land and Land of War Elf. Yeah.
They went land
And then swords.
swords
Yes.
on their turn.
On their turn.
Right?
On their turn. Yes.
So I think what they were thinking was, okay, I'm gonna put them off their mana.
Right.
I do that. I will pull the trigger on the birds when, and I really hope somebody listened to this if they are, because I don't claim to be the best Magic player, but I'm decent. I think I'm above average, but not, the best in the world.
Yeah.
And if anybody, listening, comment on this, would be great. But, I have won games where they go land bird, I go land goblin guide pass, or goblin guide attack.
Yeah.
They don't draw. I see their top card. It's not a land.
Yeah.
They draw. They play a 2-mana spell. Pass it back to me. So now I'm gonna bolt the bird because I know now that they're mana screwed.
Yeah.
And I think that, especially like in arena, waiting to see if your opponent isn't flooded is probably the right move there. Because if you had like land, then that was a waste. But does that give gain life?
It,
Or does
it
that
does.
give,
It gains me life. Yes.
it gains you life too.
Yeah.
So that's another one where you're like, okay, you're actually probably going to be taking another turn to make up for that
Right.
life.
Right.
As opposed to like, this is going to be how I'm going to win, like with that one final push. So my heuristic is kind of like, I will bolt the mana dork if I think that they're mana screwed in Brawl. Now in Modern, it really depends. I'll typically get rid of the mana dark because I need to get it out of the way for my prowess
For your
features,
attackers.
in general.
That makes sense.
But Brawl, you gotta give them to them, and that's why aggro is hard, I think, in Brawl, because 25 life, that's 5 extra life. It's I think it's a different type of aggro. Maybe we'll talk about that sometime, how to make aggro work in Brawl. But it's not the same. It's not the same as the aggro or bolt the bird that
Right,
the heuristic
right.
like happens in like older formats.
Yeah. Cool. Well, great insight from an aggro player to a control player here. Why was I was trying to wrap my head around that. I'm like, what was that? Why did they do that? Well, that's some good insight though.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. My question to you during my biggest deck tech fumble this week, I bet, when I was building my control deck, is, can you have too many wraths?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. 0 for 1.
Yes,
already.
no, it is. You absolutely can. You absolutely can. Because you got to keep your stuff on the board too, right? So, with that said, man, we do have a lot of wraths at our disposal for Brawl, which is nice. As a control player, I do enjoy that. But have I had games in which I've had 3 or 4 wrath effects in my hand that were useless? Absolutely. That happens a lot. Mainly with the ones that are very situational. So like the black ones that exile creatures that are 3 CMC or something. Like there's a couple of those that I find myself like not needing as much. But yeah, no, it is possible to have too many wraths, which is why I think it's important to have less wraths, but like have the better ones. So like Blood in the Snow, I've really liked that card with the more recent sets, because not only does it let you get rid of the board, but like you get to bring something back, which is so good because it's already like it already puts you ahead, and now you immediately present something to your opponent that they need to deal with immediately before they can start rebuilding their board. So like that is a huge tempo shift, right? So that's a good wrath effect to have. Or like the cheaper ones, like Doomscar, like just being able to just for 3 mana wipe the slate. So nice. It's so good, because then you might still have 2 mana up to counter their next player or whatever it is. But yeah, no, you don't want to have too many though. Like that's a big no-no, I think, because they're just dead cards in your hand at some point, you know. And then you're gonna not want to play your own stuff out because you were like, well, I'm gonna have Wrath anyway. So then, I don't know. That tends to grind the game to a halt, I feel. So yeah, it's possible. If I have to give a number, like we're talking like a 100 card deck here. If it's like a strictly like a traditional control deck, I think 4, maybe 3 or 4 is a pretty good number. 3 or 4 is a pretty good number. I think past that point, it's like you're either just doing like full on like Super Friends, Planeswalkers, where you don't really care about creatures too much. To me, in that sense, that makes sense to have that many board wipes. But I think 3 or 4 is that's a good sweet spot.
I know that everyone in the world loves a nice solid answer like 3 or 4.
There you go. Yeah.
Thank you, Zal, for giving that to us about Ras. I'm excited for you to see the deck that I brought this week. We'll take a quick break before we jump into our deck techs. And of course, you are appreciated. You are loved. Thank you for hanging out. This is Dan, checking Danny and I out. See you next week.
Hey folks, Zal here coming at you again with a new deck tech for today's video. The deck I'm going to be running is an Azorius mid-range deck. The commander is Tamet, Vizier of Naktamun, who is a white-blue 2/2 human cleric. His ability is, at the beginning of combat on your turn, target creature token you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn and can't be blocked this turn. He also has a cool mechanic called Embalm, which those of us not familiar, that is a mechanic that allows you to exile a creature from the graveyard for its Embalm cost. It creates a token copy of it, makes it white, it has no CMC, and most importantly, it makes it a zombie as well. So there is a zombie sub-theme in this deck. We did get a lot of new zombie cards in the more recent sets, or cards that just care about zombies or make zombies with the decay mechanic. So I'm running a couple of those creatures in here to help with that synergy and just help the wheels turn a little bit more. So Geralf Visionary Stitcher is one of those creatures that I'm running. He gives zombies flying. I'm also running other cards that make zombies or counter spells that make zombies as well. Puppet Stitcher, or Poppet Stitcher, I should say. So whenever you cast an instant sorcery, you create some zombies. So all of these things are tokens, right, that my commander will then be able to beef up a little bit and make them unblockable. Also running other creatures with an Embalm mechanic. So even Wind Guide also gives my tokens, in general, just tokens, flying and vigilance. He himself has Embalm, as well as Vizier of Many Faces, which is a good utility creature. Just comes in, he's a clone, so I can copy any creature on the battlefield. Also has an Embalm mechanic, so that can definitely help me turn the tide if my opponent has something better than I do. And the thing that really brings it all together here is God Eternal Oketra. So for 5 mana, she's a 3/6 double striker, a zombie god. And whenever I cast a creature spell, I create a 4/4 black zombie warrior token with vigilance. So again, with my commander on the field, those creatures will be 5/5s, unblockables, which can really get in for some big chunks of damage. Everything else is just more or less designed to help me stay in the game, create additional tokens, counter a couple spells that I might not be able to deal with, and just removal in general to just keep things at the pace that this deck needs to stay at. So overall, it's done pretty well against most matchups. So today we'll see what kind of games we can deliver.